Alison, good morning
Morning.
and welcome to the Small Business Development Center. We're excited to have you here today to talk to us and, more importantly, to our clients and to those budding entrepreneurs out there. What's it been like to date to get this business started? And hearing from you, the words of the entrepreneur, I think this will really, really help our audiences know the good, the bad, the different, the success, the failures, and more importantly, any advice that you can offer. So I guess my first question would be just maybe some explanation on the business, the company. I mean, we understand it's the bicycle, but having the audience have a better understanding of just what the business is and how you came to the conclusion for that business.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having us this morning.
You're welcome.
The SBDC has been a great partner so far, so happy to sit down and have a conversation. So our founder, Clark Haynes, is a lifelong bicyclist and commuter. He's also a technologist and really saw the reason to start this company because he didn't feel safe on the roads. COVID happened. He was getting out riding his bike a lot more than he previously had and just saw how dangerously people were driving. There were fewer cars on the road, but they were driving more erratically. Background in autonomous vehicles, and really found, that technology could be leveraged for an individual consumer as opposed to just for AVs. So all of this money has been pumped into autonomous transportation and self-driving cars, and not a lot of money has gone into individual safety, particularly for bicyclists. And so Copilot, which is our first product, is a backward-facing device that sits under your seat on your bike and watches the road behind you. So how that differentiates from other products on the market that are potentially radar-based or just a camera that records what's happening in the event of an incident, ours is actually leveraging AI by watching the road. So it can say, that's a person, that's a car, that's a bike, that's a truck.
Wow.
And it's only alerting you when there's a potential danger on the road. And so you're getting those alerts through audible cues. As a car approaches, you hear a sound. As a car is overtaking you, you hear a different sound. And it's an intuitive in a way that it's getting louder and faster as a car is approaching closer or faster. You can also pair it with our smartphone app, and so you have a visual representation also of what's behind you, and then it's recording the full interaction, and it's also giving feedback to the vehicle driver as well. So as a car is approaching you, the color and pattern change on Copilot to say like, hey, there's a bike on the road here, to make sure that we can stop crashes before they can occur.
Well, as we were talking before we went on air, a very good friend of mine who was a rider consistently, was coming around a corner by the University of Pittsburgh, and this car was going faster than what was anticipated, and obviously to avoid the head-on collision, he made a very, very sharp turn, wound up crashing, and breaking his femur and the whole bit. So when I was learning more about this, I'm thinking, oh man, this is a great technology to improve all vehicle safety. But more importantly, you're correct. I don't think we've done enough in the cycling area to warrant this. But if I'm correct, you entered the Duquesne Challenge, didn't you?
We did.
Yes, and weren't you a finalist?
We were. We won
Correct.
Third place. Yep.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic and actually allowed us to.
So the audience will know Duquesne has, through the School of Business, an annual Duquesne New Venture Challenge where individual entrepreneurs who are interested in submitting their proposals and business plans have a chance to win some sizable monetary rewards. You want to speak to that?
Sure. So for third place, we received $5,000, which for anyone who's ever built a startup, any money is very much welcomed to extend runway. So that's fantastic. But we also received some other wraparound services. So one of the ways that we leveraged those was we got 10 hours of free legal advice. So we got partnered with a local law firm. Another part of so we have our consumer side of the business, which is this Copilot device that we're putting out with individual cyclists, but we also have a newer kind of parallel track where we are working with cities on data partnerships and essentially leveraging Copilot as a mobile data collection tool. So we just wrapped up a partnership with the city of Pittsburgh and the city of Ann Arbor in Michigan. And essentially what we did is we sent out fleets of co-pilots with volunteer cyclists to map the area. And we were able to say, this is a hazardous area where we're seeing a lot of closed fast passes. We're able to show speed of vehicles, proximity, and how close they're getting. We're able to analyze the type of bicycle infrastructure. So for our Michigan partner, they were looking at, they have a painted line on the road, they have nothing, they have fully curb protected, they have the bollards, and really saying like, these types of infrastructure are the safest. Obviously, curb protected is going to be the safest because there's a physical barrier. But depending on what the street is, some infrastructure types just aren't necessary because cars are going slow anyway. Whereas other places where you're getting a lot of fast, close passes, additional cyclist protection would be really valuable. So as we continue to build out that city partnership, we didn't have a contract. We kind of patchwork together that we had that they had, and we kind of made it work and made it our own thing and redlined it. And what working with this law firm allowed us to do was get 10 hours of legal advice to build out a full contract that we can now use moving forward.
Do you recall, because if I may, part of being a finalist in DVNC, you received assistance from the Small Business Development Center. And one of the programs that we have here for our clients is a legal program where the client receives 10 hours of free legal services. Was that through us, or was that through a separate entity?
That was through you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so, right. I just want to make sure so our audience knows that if you do become a client, that's one of the value-added services that we do provide here. And I'm assuming they were very helpful and got the contract that you needed.
They did. They were fantastic. We haven't used it yet because we just wrapped up 2 partnerships. So our next one will be able to leverage that contract. But that was fantastic. And then we were also able to work with Tyler Benninger from the SBDC on a video, which gave us, we priced out before we realized the SBDC existed. We priced out a lot of different videographers. It was going to cost us between $3,000 and $5,000 for some marketing collateral and social cut downs and things like that. And one of our mentors who had previously worked with the SBDC for his company said, hey, did you know this was a resource that is available to small businesses in southwestern PA? And we said we didn't. So that was an initial email to you, and we kind of hit the ground running from there. But working on that video was a fantastic experience. We, obviously it's not a static brick and mortar small business type of a thing. We're kind of out on the road. And so we got a cyclist who's part of our early customers. We actually kind of went out, and I drove as safely as I could with Tyler hanging out the window of my car, taking video, and put together a really, really nice piece of collateral.
Well, we offer, just to give you a sense, and certainly not to use this as a sales pitch, but one of the things that we've tried to do here at the SBDC is, as businesses, small businesses evolve, obviously one of the major areas that's changed dramatically in the last several years is marketing. The old adage of knocking on doors, that's pretty passe.
Sure.
And we thought, digital marketing, outbound marketing, would we be able to, offer those services at no cost?
Sure.
To have it fall in line with what we're doing at the SBDC, which of course is no cost consultation. So we were able to do that, and under our marketing program, of course, with Tyler, we have developed this, and it's been really, I think, since we've instituted now about 2 years, the value-added benefit that has been brought to businesses has been great. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and you can decide which way you want to answer it.
Sure.
Greatest successes and failures?
Sure. Launching a product is very hard. People say hardware is hard, and ours is a hardware software solution. So the fact that we took a product from conception to market and have paying customers and sold out our early inventory tells us that we've succeeded by bringing something to market that people are interested in, that people find value in. Our early adopter customers say they feel safer on the road riding with Copilot. And so that's validation to us that, we're on the right track and we can keep building this. These early city partnerships have been a huge success. And we just recently, I think last week, found out that we got our first federal funding through the Department of Transportation
Great,
for an SBIR grant.
Oh, great. We assist in all of that, don't you?
We do. We ended up, actually, we had several folks through the robotics factory
Okay.
who helped us with our application.
Okay.
We partnered with CMU, who is,
They're-
very well versed in federal funding. So we had some
Good.
really great support, as well as the Ehrlichman Group, who is a consulting shop that works specifically in the kind of the mobility and transportation.
Just to keep that in mind, that we do that. In fact, I work with CMU very closely because the entrepreneurs that come out of the Center for Entrepreneurship who want to pursue SBIR, STTR, they're usually referred down to us.
Great.
So there's actually a program that we're involved in where we actually can get funding for you to pick a consultant so that you don't have to pay out of pocket. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Perfect.
Because if you're a first-time applicant, they tend to be, the failure rate on these is very high. But
Yes.
it assumes if you've got the expertise and you've got all of this, hopefully it'll be a good application.
Yep.
But if it's not, don't despair. It is what it is. And then, if you can always come back and talk with us. What would you say right now, if you had to do it over again? What would be some of the things you might have changed or done differently?
Sure. I mean, failing up is a common phrase in startups. So there's lots of different things we could say that we would do differently. I think some of the best advice we got from multiple people was you just have to launch. And I think one of the things that particularly our founder, Clark, who, this was his baby, would say was a failure is October 2022, we had these big chunky prototype units. And, the night before he was up till 2 a.m. coding software and trying to get them ready. And we said, we just have to launch with 20 people. We had like a little kickoff party. Half of the units didn't work. We started getting them on bikes, we started booting them up and they didn't work. And so I think, by all measures that feels like a failure, but it was also a huge success of like, we got it out there, we launched it, we had it on people's bikes. And eventually, a week went by, we fixed a bunch of software bugs and we got the rest of the units out there. But I think it's very hard for founders. I know it was for him and it has been for me along different steps with customers to say it doesn't have to be perfect. We just have to get it out there, because if you wait until it's perfect, you waited too long.
So would it be fair to say, like in the particular business that you're in, which is obviously, I would say, AI, IT, you're not making a widget. You're not producing clothing, where in that case, if it's a defect, it's a defect. Would it be fair to say, unlike that type of a business, you're saying, hey, we're trying to get to the ideal and we can work with you through those stages? Is that a fair assessment in terms of differentiating, say, a business that produces a product, a tangible product or a wearable product, as opposed to a business, say, that's creating more along the lines of AI, IT, high intellectual capability?
So I think what's unique about ours is we're both of those things. We're a physical product that's leveraging AI.
True, yes.
And so I think we're constantly iterating. Another thing that we hear regularly is if you don't hate your first product, you perfected it too much. And if you ask Clark, he would say, I hate the first version. Our mounting solution, I would say that too. It's a pain in the neck to get on and off your bike, but we needed to get it out there so we could start to get that feedback. And so right now we're working with some hardware engineers. We had a fantastic hardware engineering intern this summer who's doing his graduate work at Carnegie Mellon, working on our V2 design. And
Good.
So we're constantly iterating on the software and improving it.
Right.
We also put together a bike LiDAR. So LiDAR is what you see on top of the autonomous vehicles that spins.
Mm-hmm.
We actually built a bike rig to have a LiDAR on it so that we can train our models on a bike-centered data set. Our initial computer vision models were based on car data, and we said we really want to narrow in and make sure this is from a bike's perspective. So we have this crazy bike rig that has a LiDAR unit that has a Copilot on it, and so we can take all of that camera imagery, which is much higher quality, and then train Copilot on that data set. So
Interesting. What would you say to any budding entrepreneur, anyone that's out there? I often say you're in the shower and you've got this idea, or you scratch it on a napkin, and there's been many businesses who've actually started on a napkin. What would be your advice to any new or budding entrepreneur who's got that I have this idea, but
sure. Get started, and there's a fantastic book called The Mom Test that I would encourage people to read. And it's essentially like go out and make sure that you have a market. Your mom or your close friends are going to be cheerleaders, stereotypically, to say like, this is a great idea. We went out and did a ton of customer discovery with cyclists to validate what we thought was a need, and then heard from people like, yes, I would buy this kind of product. What gear do you have on your bike now? What would you like? What cost would you be willing to pay for safety? So many different questions. And I think making sure that there's a market before you get too far down the road and say, I think this is a great product.
so
There's nobody there to buy it.
So market validation
Exactly.
is key.
Yep.
We usually speak to that, but hearing again, from the entrepreneur who is obviously at this point moving through a very successful business, the fact that market validation. The other aspect that we feel strongly about, but I'd be curious if you feel the same, is knowing if there's competition out there, and if there is, who are they? What are you competing against? Is it product? Is it price? Is it customer satisfaction?
Sure.
What's your thoughts about the competitive environment along those same lines, like market validation?
Yeah, I mean, competition is a good thing. It means there's demand. In our case, Garmin has had the long-standing product called the Garmin Varia that people love. However, it's radar-based. So from a technology standpoint, it's basically telling you something's coming in your direction fast, but it can't give you any kind of detailed information. Our differentiator is because we're using a camera-based system, we can actually identify the road actor and their behavior. So if a car is going 65 miles an hour 3 lanes away from you, they're not a threat. They're not coming anywhere close to you. You're not going to get any kind of alert to that. With the Varia, you are. It's going to be going crazy. And so if that car starts coming in toward you, you're going to get an alert. And so that's one of the big differentiators. In the last year, Trek, who's another huge, bike giant, came out with a radar-based product to compete with Garmin. So we know that there's demand, and while those are competing products with ours, we believe that we have a smarter version of that and can really scale that. But it's great to see that those big names in the market see the value of that and see that there's a market for it.
So would it be fair to say then, along those lines, as you're assessing your competitive environment, you're looking then, what is your differential? Do you have a differential to offer that would make your product better than, different than, more value added, say, than that competitor? Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. I mean, Garmin and Trek's budgets obviously are exponentially larger than ours from a marketing perspective, from a brand awareness perspective, and so for us to be successful, we have to have some kind of differentiating factor, and we think we do.
Excuse me, sorry about that. How overall, in terms of the audience that will be listening to this, tell us about your relationship with the SBDC, and talk to the audience a little bit about that working relationship and what you gained from the relationship with the Small Business Development Center.
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying we've recommended you all to quite a few people within our network because we're closely working with startups regularly. So it was a very positive experience for us, and it was a huge value add. Like I mentioned, the video collateral, one of the things that customers and people who were just interested in learning what we were doing had difficulty with was it's a very, what do I experience as the cyclist? And without visuals about that, it's really hard to understand, okay, I'm getting audible sounds of some kind, like what does that feel like? And so being able to show that in action of this is what the car sees, this is what the cyclist feels, was a really important thing for us to capture. And once we had that video content from the SBDC, we were able to reach customers in a very different way of like, oh, I get it. Investors as well. You know, we're doing pitches all the time and trying to explain this with static images, and it's really challenging to kind of like wrap your brain around how this works. Having that video collateral made a huge difference in helping us explain our product.
We always say to the entrepreneur, pictures tell 1,000 words. What you can do in a 5 or 10 second, 15-second video or short, you know, can tell the potential investor, touching, feeling, seeing, that kind of thing. What would you, in closing, what would be your final advice, final recommendations, any thoughts to the entrepreneurial community?
I think, especially for folks who are in southwestern PA, is there are so many resources and there are so many free resources available to you if you look and leverage them. I think something a lot of people do is they go for either a quick solution or they have someone in their network. They end up spending a lot of money early on, which can be challenging from a runway perspective. But I think if you look around, I mean, we have an incredible ecosystem of business resources, of tech and robotics and AI resources that have free services available. Take advantage of them. There's so much knowledge in the community that you can gain, you know, expertise from and physical products and other things. And so I would just recommend that people connect in order to, you know, further their business at cost.
Well, I want to thank you today for coming in and spending some time with us. You've been a great client. We're excited about the successes that you're making. We hope to be able to keep you as a long-term client, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.